"Attend me," Clara Alicia Kinubat Penelope said sharply as the children settled into their seats. Today we will start with a review of our history. We will begin with the before, Ms. Clara said, and then she pointed at one of the younger students.
Once the whole of this land, not just the regions here, but all of it from one salty ocean to the other, was a great nation. The people had men, and they had lots to eat and good clothes to wear. Men! Men! Men!
The girls cried in unison, and they began the familiar rhyme.
Sowing with a sickle, planting is less fickle. But if I had a nickel, I'd buy me some men. Medicines are mixtures, mixtures of pictures, old and faded fixtures, an army full of men.
Very good, girls, Ms. Clara said appreciatively. Then she asked, "Who can tell me more about the before?" An older girl volunteered and said,
In the before, they had the technologies to light their houses and buildings, and to show them places that were far away, even when they sat inside their homes. They could talk to anyone, be they in the next room or miles and miles away. The land was called the United States.
Then there came a sickness called a pandemic. We just call it the Demic. The Demic killed close to half of the women and 85% of the men, Ms. Clara said.
Next came the scattering.
One of the girls volunteered. Go on, Ms. Clara encouraged.
The scattering was when the people, those that were not sick, hid away from the cities and towns. They went to live in the forests, the mountains, and the wild places.
Correct, said Miss Clara. She added, those that could not hide away died. If not from the Demic, they died from starvation or other sicknesses that could not be treated, or they died in the wild times that immediately followed the Demic. Finally, it seemed that the remaining population stabilized. Then a surviving man named Reverend Long came to power. Who can tell me about Reverend Long? Another girl volunteered and said,
Reverend Long taught that it was the corruption of the before and the misuse of the technologies that caused the Demic. He led the people to the tearing down and the smashings. A lot of people followed, but a good number of people remained hidden and did not take part in the destruction.
Correct, Ms. Clara said. We call this era the darkness of Reverend Long, or the Doral for short. Who can tell me what happened next? Ms. Clara asked.
Over time, the Reverend tightened his control so much that the people were unhappy. They rose up against Reverend Long and put him to rest deep in the dirt, and many more people died. The ones left of those that had closely followed him were spared only if they recanted. And if they did recant, they were made into the first worker mules, forever forbidden to breed.
That was when the laws, the rules, and the doings came about, with harsh penalties for any acts of aggression and requirements for every person to follow. The coalition and cooperative are the administrators of the now, And in the now, we all work for the beginning, which will be the time when the world is once again like it was in the before, except without the Demic. Among the first laws that the CNC passed was to mandate that every girl in the middle day of the middle month of the first season of their 16th year would report to the nearest regional center for their life assignment. Within each of the regions, there are communities. There are seekers and hunters, those that forage or trade, and those that kill the wild animals for food and hides. Farmers till the soil for crops and raise animals. The smaller communities include tinkers that are skilled technicians who fix the old things, and claimers are those that go out into the old places to scavenge. A very small amount of people serve as CNCers and researchers. Within each of those communities, the people can have specialized jobs. One might be a hunter-tanner or a seeker-tanner. If they're under the age of 16, and if the community has a school, they might be a teacher. We allow a small percentage of claimers and tinkers, hoping that they can find and repair vital equipment, perhaps find stores of old medication, or anything that might help us in our goals. Regional centers like this one distribute food and clothing to the claimers and tinkers, who in turn, as required, bring their goods here to be evaluated. With so much of the before's knowledge having been stored on fragile media, and with the extensive damage that Reverend Long did, it's a miracle that we've been able to accomplish as much as we have. Welcome new and returning breeders. Returnees can check their assignments after the presentation and then get themselves situated. We welcome men, those coming of age, and some coming in a trade with nearby regional centers. Please do not gawk at or bother the men. I ask instead that you devote your complete attention to the front of the room. New breeders, welcome, welcome. You will each be assigned to a room with 3 other roommates. 4 rooms together will make up a quad and are guided by an experienced leader. Each female here at the spa is required to do 4 hours each of chores, education, and crafting. In addition, they must keep their own space clean. Chores consist of all aspects of laundry, cleaning, cooking, and gardening. Chores are rotated every week, as are the shifts. Morning shifts of laundry, cleaning, gardening, education, and crafting begin after breakfast until noon. Breakfast is held from 7 to 8 a.m. Morning shifts of cooking run from 6 to 8 a.m. and then again from 10 a.m. till noon. Lunch is served at noon. Afternoon shifts run from 1 to 5 p.m. Afternoon cooking shifts are from 1 to 3 p.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. Dinner is at 6 p.m. Evening shifts are from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. 4 hours of education each day. Non-readers are required to take and complete all basic education courses before selecting any of the other course options. Readers may choose from courses on healing, delivery, and care of newborns, or they may opt for classes on growing and harvesting medicinal plants. Skilled craft courses, such as those in electrical wiring and repair, plumbing, carpentry, weaving, and tailoring, etc., are also available. Finally, advanced courses in the sciences, mathematics, literature, and human studies are available to those who score well on placement tests. The rules for breeding apply to everyone. Breeders must ensure that each child that they bear comes from a different male donor. This is no easy task given the limited amount of available healthy males. Breeders must travel to a breeding spa to conceive. Sometimes this means traveling far to find a new donor. Women can produce many children during the 19 years of their prime. Breeders live very busy lives. They are heavily rewarded for producing healthy, productive male children. A breeder never has to worry about having enough to eat or having warm clothes to wear. When a boy is born, the infant remains with his mother while he's still a wetling on his mother's teat. Once he cuts his first tooth, his mother is forbidden to nurse him. The mother and child return to her home for 6 months. If the child survives, he is then brought back to the spa to be raised and educated. We prefer that breeders wait at least 15 months after a male birth before attempting fertilization again. When a breeder has a girl, the mother is required to give individual care to the child until she reaches the age of 6. When the girl is over 6 years old, the mother can place her with elders or in a school if the community has one. The mother may then return to a breeding spa.